For most of human history, we spent our days outside, bathed in sunlight. Our bodies evolved to run on it. But today, we've engineered a lifestyle that almost completely blocks it out. We commute in enclosed cars, work 9 to 5 in climate-controlled offices, and spend our evenings inside. We've walled ourselves off from our primary energy source. Because of this shift, over half of older women and 57% of general study populations are operating with a vitamin D deficiency. It is a massive, silent shortfall across the board. This chart shows exactly how this breaks down. You start with a high baseline deficiency for indoor workers, and the numbers get progressively worse depending on your environment and biology. If you live in a winter climate with limited daylight, your risk jumps. And with a darker skin tone, melanin blocks the sunlight necessary for synthesis, putting you at even higher risk. In extreme cases, starving the body of this nutrient leads to severe structural failures. Historically, this manifested as rickets in children and osteomalacia, a literal softening of the bones, in adults. You can see the long-term physical toll here. Without adequate levels, growing bones lack rigidity to support body weight, causing them to bend under strain. Simply living a standard, indoor, modern lifestyle puts you at an enormous disadvantage. It practically guarantees a hidden deficit that degrades your immune health and slowly compromises your bone density. Most people hear vitamin D and mentally file it away next to vitamin C or a generic daily multivitamin, something nice to have but ultimately optional. Despite its name, vitamin D functions as a highly active, fat-soluble steroid hormone. Nearly every tissue and cell in your body has receptors for it. It interacts directly with your DNA, regulating the genes that control your immune system, your metabolism, and how your cells grow and develop. It drives calcium absorption in the gut, and, as recent research indicates, plays a specific role in maintaining muscle strength and coordination. Treating a master hormone regulator like a minor dietary afterthought means leaving your core biological systems completely unoptimized. You have to actively manage it. The first strategy people try when trying to fix this deficit is through their diet. They try to eat their way out of it. The problem is, standard whole foods are incredibly poor sources. Items like beef liver, cheese, and egg yolks yield somewhere between 10 to 60 international units per ounce. Look at this chart comparing food yields to the optimal daily intake. The tiny amounts you get from an egg yolk barely register against the massive amount your body actually needs to thrive. The only natural food source that carries a genuinely high payload is cod liver oil, coming in at over 1,300 international units per single tablespoon. This is why early 20th century societies brute forced the requirement. Parents lined kids up for a daily, highly unpleasant spoonful of thick fish oil to ward off bone diseases. Unless you're willing to drink massive, unpalatable amounts of specific fish oils every morning, hitting your optimal hormone levels through a standard diet alone is functionally impossible. That brings us to the second natural strategy, synthesizing the hormone directly through sunlight. The biological mechanism works well, but the requirements are strict. You need to expose roughly 25% of your skin to direct midday summer sun for anywhere from 15 to 60 minutes to produce a meaningful yield. This is the ideal scenario for synthesis, but taking an hour to lay out in a bathing suit at noon simply doesn't align with modern work schedules or responsibilities. Then there is the geographic penalty. If you live in the upper third of the United States, or anywhere at a higher latitude, the winter sun's UVB rays are physically too weak to trigger synthesis in your skin. As the northern hemisphere tilts away from the sun during the winter months, the atmosphere blocks the specific ultraviolet wavelengths your body needs. You could stand outside in January and produce zero vitamin D. The environmental penalty is so severe that historically, medical professionals resorted to placing children around intense artificial UV lamps just to prevent mass deficiencies during the dark months. Even during the summer, relying solely on the sun introduces a harsh trade-off. You have to balance the exact amount of UVB exposure needed for hormone production against the very real, accumulating risk of skin damage. While human skin is highly efficient at making vitamin D in a vacuum, our modern schedules and seasonal shifts and geographical limits render the sun an incredibly unreliable strategy for at least half the year. That leaves the third and most practical choice for the vast majority of people: targeted daily oral supplementation, specifically using the natural D3 form known as cholecalciferol. Taking a supplement is cheap, effective, and gives you maximum flexibility to maintain stable hormone levels year-round, completely bypassing the winter penalty. But because it is so accessible, it is easy to fall into the more is always better trap. And with this specific compound, that mindset is actively dangerous. This chart lays out the exact dosing thresholds. You have the bare minimum recommended allowance at the bottom, the optimal intake in the middle, and a strict tolerable upper limit set at 4,000 international units per day. If you push past that upper limit into the red zone, you run into trouble. Because vitamin D is fat-soluble, your body can't easily flush out the excess in your urine. Instead, it accumulates deeply in your tissues over time. Chronic toxicity forces your body to absorb too much calcium, leading to severe kidney strain and, paradoxically, causing a measurable decrease in your overall bone mass. Supplements are unquestionably your best tool here, but their biological potency means they have to be treated with the respect of a medical intervention, not a harmless candy you can take by the handful. There's one last common objection to supplementing: the idea that consuming fortified foods like orange juice and milk completely covers your daily needs. Fortifying dairy was a public health stopgap introduced decades ago to prevent outright bone disease in the general population. It provides a tiny fraction of what an active adult actually needs. This exposes the massive gap between the government's recommended dietary allowance and your optimal daily intake. The baseline dietary allowance is engineered to give you the bare minimum required to ward off diseases like rickets. The optimal intake provides the actual volume necessary to keep your immune and metabolic systems running smoothly. Meeting the bare minimum might keep you from clinical disease, but relying on outdated fortified foods and government baselines leaves your cellular health suboptimized. So rather than guessing a dosage and hoping for the best, you need to map out a personalized strategy based on your actual lifestyle. This flowchart makes it simple. Step 1. Do you get 30 minutes of direct midday summer sun every day? If you do, you're in the lucky minority who just monitors levels. For the rest of us, supplementation is necessary. From there, the dosage depends on your data. Do you know your current blood levels? If not, sticking within the safe, established baseline of 1 to 4,000 units keeps you out of the toxicity zone. But paying out of pocket for a simple blood test provides the highest return on investment. It eliminates the guesswork and tells you exactly how much you need to take to hit your optimal range. Confirming your exact baseline internal metrics is practically the only way to effectively manage a hormone this powerful. But here is where the biology gets complicated. Once you optimize your vitamin D, your body suddenly starts absorbing a massive amount of calcium from your diet. If you don't have the right minerals to balance that incoming calcium, it can settle in your arteries instead of your bones. And that brings us to the next critical deficiency you have to solve: magnesium.